In the early 90s, in the sun-soaked streets of Miami, Florida, a boy named Jonathan James sat in his dimly lit room. Unlike other kids, Jonathan wasn't interested in typical school activities. While his peers were playing outside, Jonathan was delving into the intricate world of computers. At the time, owning a personal computer, let alone having an internet connection, was still a rarity. But since Jonathan's father was a computer programmer, he had a computer set up at home. His dad had instilled a love for technology in him from a young age. So, ever since he was a child, Jonathan had an insatiable curiosity to grasp the complexities of digital systems. He spent countless hours teaching himself various coding languages and had a particular interest in computer security. At the age of 12, he uninstalled the Windows operating system to replace it with Linux just to understand how it works. His parents assumed he was just another tech-savvy teenager. Little did they know, Jonathan's abilities far surpassed his age. It all started in 1999, when Jonathan just turned 15. He was a student at Palmetto Senior High School in Miami, Florida. Jonathan's first notable exploit was hacking into the educational institutions in Miami-Dade County. He managed to gain access to his high school's network. He identified and exploited vulnerabilities, obtaining administrative privileges. With a few keystrokes, he could view and modify students' grades and other personal information. He manipulated his grades, which proved to his parents that all this time spent on the computer didn't affect his schooling. But he also enjoyed the intellectual challenge of it, and the thrill of bypassing security measures fueled his desire to push further. So not long after, Jonathan set his sight on a larger target, BellSouth, a major telecommunications company. After a bit of research, he found weaknesses in their network security. His approach was methodical, leveraging the knowledge he had amassed to breach their systems. Gaining access to sensitive information within BellSouth's network, he left his mark. Jonathan altered BellSouth's website, a bold statement highlighting the vulnerabilities and the need for stronger security measures. His intent wasn't malicious. He just wanted to showcase what could be done and draw attention to the importance of cybersecurity.
So is it just the rush of getting in there, of doing something smarter than they do, or did you find anything there that was of interest to you?
Generally, the thrill is over once you've realized that you're on the computer and that you can do whatever you want. But it's not downloading their information, because usually it's pointless bureaucratic stuff you don't need to know.
But he didn't stop there. Chapter 2: Reaching for the Stars. This same year, shortly after the BellSouth hack, Jonathan, by now known as Comrade, is ready for his next challenge. From his parents' house in his bedroom, he has the power at his fingertips. Traveling through the internet at his own will, with basically no restrictions. Meanwhile, around 1,000 miles away, Department of Defense engineers are working on critical projects, oblivious to the fact that a teenager is hovering through their systems. Jonathan found a vulnerability in the server of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the part of the Department of Defense who are responsible for countering threats posed by weapons of mass destruction. He installed a backdoor on the server and used a sniffer to intercept messages and obtain login credentials. He gained access to thousands of internal emails from various DoD employees. These emails included usernames and passwords, which he then used to gain access to additional DoD systems. He also managed to download thousands of emails from Pentagon employees. This marked the first successful intrusion into the internal networks of one of the Pentagon's external units. The potential harm and chaos he could have caused with this information was immeasurable. And yet, there he sat in his bedroom, and instead of causing harm or embarrassing them publicly, he sent an email to the systems administrator, educating him on what the issues were and how to fix them. A few weeks later, he went and checked, and to his disappointment, they didn't make the changes he suggested. By that time, he just thought they simply didn't care that he was there.
Was it a big shock to you that the government was using such inferior code for such important work?
Yes, but you get used to it. I'm not surprised anymore when I see the failures of the government.
In the same year, NASA, a symbol of technological innovation, is about to face an unprecedented breach. Jonathan compromised a server at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, the unit responsible for maintaining communication with the International Space Station. By exploiting vulnerabilities in the network security, he gained access to the server and then downloaded source code worth $1.7 million. This code contained critical information about the environmental control and life support systems, which manage the physical environment and conditions aboard the space station, including temperature and humidity within the living quarters. This breach forced NASA to shut down their systems for 3 weeks, which resulted in a financial loss of over $40,000.
A lot of attention was given to the fact that you downloaded software relating to the International Space Station. Could you have done anything with that?
No, it was for the Environmental Control Program. Who wants that? You can play with the air conditioner or what? The code itself was crappy, certainly not worth $1.7 million like they claimed. The only reason I was downloading the source code in the first place was because I was studying C programming. And what better way to learn than reading software written by the government?
Unlike other hackers who used their skills for political or ethical reasons, Jonathan did not have a specific agenda or message to convey. Even though he was in touch with other hackers, he mainly worked alone. His motivations were primarily driven by intellectual challenges, curiosity, and the desire to learn, as well as pointing out security flaws. He never meant to cause nor caused real harm. The underlying motivation for all hackers remains the pursuit of power and control, but it might be worth keeping in mind that the reasoning and justifications for their actions can differ greatly. Chapter 3: The Search for Comrade. In the NASA headquarters, their engineers have been working tirelessly for weeks. Although Jonathan made it a little difficult for authorities to trace his activities directly back to him, he never put any real security measures in place. He obviously underestimated the seriousness of his actions.
If I wanted to, I could have hidden myself. But I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, so why bother?
January 26 of the year 2000. It was a chilly morning in Florida. Jonathan wakes up to rapid knocking on his door. He immediately felt an unnerving feeling in his gut. Still groggy from having been woken up unexpectedly, he made his way to the front door and only realized what was going on when he saw their uniforms. While the agents went into his room to go through all of his belongings, Jonathan was asked to go into a back room where they questioned him for hours. He admitted to his hacking activities, explained how he did it, and expressed remorse, saying he would not do it again, and apologized. The agent seized his 5 computers, his CDs, and his Palm Pilot, which is a little device that could run different applications to manage your contacts, calendar, and tasks. They didn't arrest him that day, but placed him under investigation. He didn't hear from them for a few months, but then eventually informed him that they were going to press charges. Finding an appropriate sentence for Jonathan James was challenging due to his status as a minor, the severity of his crimes, and because it was the first ever cybercrime to this magnitude by a minor. As a juvenile, the court sought to balance between accountability and rehabilitation. He was sentenced in September 2000 to 6 months of house arrest and was required to serve this time confined to his home. He would remain on probation until he turned 18. He was prohibited from using computers for anything other than educational purposes during his probation period. He was also required to complete a certain number of hours of community service, and he was ordered to write apology letters to NASA and the Department of Defense. had he been an adult, his actions would have resulted in a much harsher sentence, potentially up to 10 years in prison due to the significant security breaches and potential national security risks involved. As a juvenile defendant, Jonathan James would have remained anonymous, but his father revealed his son's name with a touch of pride after he pleaded guilty. "I've been in computers for 20 years, and I can't do what he was doing," his father said in an interview with the Miami Herald. "He didn't do anything destructive." But then, while on probation, Jonathan violated the terms by testing positive for drug use. As a result, his probation was revoked, and he was subsequently sentenced to serve 6 months in a juvenile correctional facility in Alabama. After Jonathan was released from the juvenile correctional facility in 2001, he largely kept a low profile. He continued his education and tried to move on from his past as a hacker. Chapter 4. Once a criminal, always a criminal. Then in 2005, the retail giant TJX Companies, which owns brands such as TJ Maxx and Marshalls, fell victim to a massive cyber attack. The breach, which persisted undetected for over 18 months, compromised the personal and financial information of over 94 million customers. Hackers exploited weak encryption and vulnerabilities in TJX's wireless network to gain access to the company's transaction database. Using sophisticated techniques, the attackers siphoned off credit card details, driver's license numbers, and other sensitive customer information. The breach led to significant financial losses and irreparable damages to TJX's reputation. The scale and impact of the attack drew immense attention from law enforcement agencies and the cybersecurity community. As part of the investigation conducted by federal authorities, including the Secret Service, a conspirator had been identified who had used the initials JJ. Amid the widespread investigation, Jonathan James became a person of interest. His history of high-profile hacks of the past painted him as a plausible suspect. The authorities believed that someone with Jonathan's skill set could easily have orchestrated such an elaborate breach. Despite having served his sentence and showing no subsequent illegal activity, Jonathan's past continued to haunt him. Law enforcement agents raided his home yet again, confiscating computers, storage devices, and personal documents. Jonathan, now in his early 20s, was adamant about his innocence. He cooperated fully, providing all necessary information and consistently denying any involvement in the TJX hack. Yet, his past actions overshadowed his words, and the investigation's pressure mounted. Throughout the ordeal, Jonathan maintained his innocence, reaching out to anyone who would listen. He spoke with friends, family, and even the media, insisting that he had turned his life around and had no part in the TJX hack. However, the stigma of his earlier exploits made his assertions less convincing to the authorities. They were determined to find a link between Jonathan and the cybercrime, scrutinizing every aspect of his life. The relentless investigation took a toll on Jonathan. Jonathan was put under constant surveillance, was repeatedly interrogated, and the strain on his personal relationships weighed heavily on him. His mental health deteriorated under the unyielding pressure, and despair began to overshadow his once brilliant mind. May 18, 2008. It was a cloudy Sunday in Pinecrest, Florida. 24-year-old Jonathan James is sitting at his desk in his bedroom of his family home. He just finished writing a letter. Then he gets up. And slowly walks into his bathroom. The note reads, "My soul is dead. I will look after the flesh."
you.